I think it's important that we share, that we communicate, that we open, and that we grow together to achieve.
We are the voice of what wellness is about, and it's up to us to spread the message.
Good morning, good afternoon, and of course in New Zealand, I believe it's 9:30 there. Good evening to Professional Beauty's World Spa and Wellness Conference. Today is the last of our 3 days. We've had 70 speakers covering all sorts of topics, but really to inspire and hopefully to give you practical tips as to looking at your spa and wellness and fitness business again. And this next presentation is our one and only keynote. And I'm going to introduce our speaker in a moment. And I'd like to say thank you to our partners in this, Spa Connectors, for introducing us to our speaker, World Wellness Weekend, and of course our main partners, Biologic Research and Lemmy. So I'd like to introduce you to our presenter and keynote speaker, Dr. Amanda Foo-Ryland. Amanda is author of the book, This Is It, It's Your Life, Live It. She contributes regularly to the Huffington Post and runs numerous courses. And Amanda's keynote is How to Catch the COVID Curveball. Amanda, welcome, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's a delight to be with you all. Here in New Zealand, I've just put my twin baby boys to bed. It's now coming up to just 9:30, so an honor to be with you. I'm going to share my screen with you because I want to walk you through these various mindsets that are really going to help us throughout this time. My background is in neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy and hypnotherapy, but that's not relevant really. What I'm wanting to take you through is some personal experiences where curveballs have hit my life and I've been able to use my toolbox to be able to help me navigate that. So first of all, I want to introduce you to my beautiful wife, Sarah, who works with me in the company. And Sarah clearly has got the dark hair. And then we've got little Noah and little Jasper, our twin baby boys, and they just turned 1 on Saturday. So as you can imagine, we've got a very, very full household. Now, what I'd like you to do is just imagine behind you or at the side of you is a plank of wood. Now, this plank of wood is 2 meters in length. It's about 40 centimeters in width, and it's a good, strong plank of wood. It's nice and thick. It will definitely carry your weight. I want you to imagine you're going to take off your shoes and socks, and I'm going to ask you to walk along that plank of wood, balancing carefully, turning round and walking back. Nice and easy, right? Simple, because it's on the carpet just behind you or to the side of you. Now imagine that we have taken that plank of wood, same plank of wood, same strength, but now we've suspended it out of the 12-story building. Now, the same skills are required. It's the same piece of wood, but all of a sudden, how many of us really would want to do that? Because the environment has changed. It makes it feel different. And that's what's happened in the last, well, for us, it's been 7 weeks in New Zealand. The environment has changed dramatically. And therefore, the same skills that we use are no longer necessarily applicable. We have to skill up. So I want to share with you these 3 mindsets. The first one is mindsets that really work. So in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to take you through some mindsets that are really simple to grasp that really work. How to delete negativity. I mean, oh my goodness, there is so much negativity at the moment. And if we're not being bombarded by the media, you just need to bump into somebody social distanced away from you and it will be there, negativity. And thirdly, what is empowerment? Now, some of these topics you maybe have heard before, but I'm going to invite you to look upon this like a child. Now, here we go. Here's little Noah. And this is my brother before lockdown that came to visit us here in New Zealand. And you can see that Noah is mesmerized because my brother is sporting a little moustache. Now, Noah lives with two mummies, so he's never seen facial hair before. So just so we can reconnect what that childlike curiosity is like, let's take a look at Noah's reaction and how curious he is, even though he's frightened.
We don't quite know what that is, do we? We have a touch? Oh, no, I don't know if I want to touch. I might have a touch. No, I don't think I will have a touch. Oh. I'll just look. Oh, no, I might touch. Oh, I am going to touch. Oh, I touched it. Oh, it's furry. I don't know if I like that. I don't know. Don't know if I like that.
Noodle.
So come and join me on this journey with this childlike curiosity, this open-eyed wonder, and treat everything newly. Now, my background is with Estee Lauder, and back in the day when I was working with the Lauder Corporation, we were very excited because we had just signed this supermodel, not Hugh Grant, Elizabeth Hurley. Very excited. It was just before one of our premier fragrance launches, and we just signed her and we were about to launch this fragrance. And being the world leading cosmetic house at the time, all our T's were crossed and all our I's were dotted. There was nothing left to chance. However, 5 days before our fragrance launch, Hugh Grant was caught in an uncompromising situation with a lady called Divine Brown. Now, many of you may be too young to remember this, but Divine Brown was a lady of the night. Now, this caused a massive problem for the Lauder Corporation because we had all the buyers throughout the United Kingdom, all of Fleet Street, all flocking to a hotel in Knightsbridge to launch this fragrance. And Elizabeth had gone underground naturally. She wanted to escape the media. So you can get a sense of that's a huge curveball to have to try and navigate. Was Elizabeth going to be there or not? And this is the thing. People react very differently depending on the tools that they've got. So let's get straight into the first tool. And it's all about your neurology. Interestingly enough, you have 64,000 thoughts on average per day. Now, sadly, research shows us that 80% of those are negative. Now, this is before the coronavirus hit, so I can only imagine that number's gone higher. However, what's interesting is we get what we focus on. What we focus on affects literally our behavior and it affects our physiology. What we focus on is what we get. So if you're going to focus on anxiety or guilt or self-doubt or worry, they will grow. What I'm going to encourage you to focus on is the flower pot says love, but what I'm going to encourage you to focus on is the future that you do want. Now, I said I was going to make this personal, and I always make every presentation that I do about life experience. I think that's really key. And this is a picture taken back in 2014, having just cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats. I'm the one in the middle with my two buddies. There were 3 of us that cycled it. We raised money for charity, and I was as fit as a butcher's dog, literally as fit as I'd ever been. I then got back to New Zealand and had a routine health check. What that routine health check showed was that I had a tumour in my left kidney. Now, I had a choice. I could either listen to the voice of worry, which was, oh my gosh, this is cancer, this is terrible, cancer kills people, kidney cancer is a silent killer, or I could listen to the voice of positivity and optimism. What I know from my studies is that when disaster hits, when a curveball hits, what happens is this. This is what happens in the neurology. Let me explain. Imagine that the clock represented the day that I found out that I got a tumour inside my left kidney. The line indicates the time going forward. And it was going to be 12 days before I was going to see the specialist. So I had no idea in those 12 days whether I would be diagnosed with cancer or not. Now, I had an option, because what happens when people think something's going to go wrong is they climb into the event and they run a movie. They see the person in the movie, in my case, the specialist, telling me with a very sad face that this is not good news, Amanda. So what I'm hearing in the movie matches the soundtrack that I'm making, and that drives a feeling which creates anxiety. So what's interesting is that rather than focus on it all going wrong, what I chose to do was focus on it going right. I imagine seeing a specialist saying, Amanda, this is totally fine, it's benign, it's a cyst, it's going to disappear. Hearing him say that, feeling relaxed, and inside kind of going, oh my goodness, you know, I'm so grateful. Now, it didn't change the outcome. It didn't change the outcome. The actual fact is that the kidney did have cancer in it. And this is me just post surgery. What's important though is those 12 days of me focusing on the movie that I wanted to see meant I slept well. It meant I ate well. It meant I exercised well. It meant I went into it really resourceful. Whereas if I'd have spent the time focusing on everything that could go wrong, I would have sleep deprivation. I'd be worried. My immune system would be depleted. And I certainly wouldn't have gone into the surgery as resourceful as I was by focusing on the outcome I wanted. Now, interestingly, Deepak Chopra, who many of you may have heard of, a medical doctor based in Boston, he wrote a book in 1984 called Quantum Healing. If you haven't read it, just jot that down. Quantum Healing. It was written in 1984, and it was the first time that we had scientific evidence to prove that what we think actually affects us physically. Now, any of you that experience anxiety do is think an event like this. However, in order to show you how profound this can be and how strong our neurology is, I'd like to introduce you to Lewis Poe. Now, Lewis Poe is a maritime lawyer. He's South African by origin, and he's based in London. And he's passionate about stopping the ice caps melting. Now, you may notice this photograph's a bit odd because he is wearing a pair of Speedos and he is literally leaning on an iceberg. This picture was taken at the North Pole. The water temperature is minus 1.7. And what Lewis wanted to do was swim 1 kilometre in the North Pole at minus 1.7, which took him 19 minutes to prove that the ice caps are melting. His medical team said, Lewis, you can't possibly do that. It's way too dangerous. You're likely to have a cardiac arrest. At the very least, you will lose your fingers. You will lose your toes. It's not worth considering, but Lewis did it. And if you are interested, if you just Google Lewis Poe, you will actually see the film, the swim was filmed. Now, what Lewis said to CNN was this when he was interviewed. He said, I could smell the diesel. It's all about our senses. He could hear Tim shouting from the boat, come on, Tim, come on. He could taste the salt water. He could feel the water burning his skin. And that's all while he was sat on his couch in London. He said, I have swum the North Pole hundreds of times in my mind. So what's important is that when we're thinking about our future, run a movie that you want to see. Imagine seeing it real time, looking through your own eyes. Imagine hearing the soundtrack that goes with that. What's your internal dialogue going to be? And how will that make you feel? Very different to if you were running the movie you didn't want to have. Now, for me, when I came out of surgery, my movie that was set 4 months in the future was to run a marathon here in New Zealand. So I imagined seeing myself run over the finishing line, hearing the crowd cheering, my friends cheering, my internal dialogue saying, yes, I've done it. I'm feeling amazing. And that's what I got to do 4 months after having kidney surgery. So that's the first mindset. The second thing is, how do we delete negativity? How do we delete that negativity? Now, interestingly enough, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I'm photographed here with in Auckland several years ago, he's written many books, but the first book there on the left is called The Biology of Belief. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's again a medical doctor based out of Stanford, his research says that 95% of our behavior on a daily basis runs unconsciously or subconsciously. Is the term you may know. What does that mean? Just play with me a second. If you've got a coffee cup, water, whatever you've got in your hands, just pop it down. And what I'd like you to do is just fold your arms. Easy, right? Super easy. Now unfold them and fold them the opposite way around. It's a little trickier, isn't it? It's a little bit more difficult because that's how your unconscious mind or subconscious mind stores your program for how to fold your arms. Therefore, a lot of things happen unconsciously without us even realizing it. And the advertisers know this, right? The advertising industry knows that they can get underneath the radar. So I'd like to introduce you to something that's going to allow you to control what you allow into your unconscious mind and what you block. And this is all sourced from a book called The Virus of the Mind by Richard Brody. And this book it's really worth a read, or an audio book listen if you prefer that way. Essentially what it talks about is we are unaware of how many viruses can come into our neurology and grow there. So it might be that you will all know what I mean. You go to the supermarket, you see somebody that you know is just an energy drainer. You know, their cup's half full, half empty, not half full. And you think, oh, I don't want to get into conversation with them. They are a negative Nelly, as we would say in Yorkshire. How do we quickly delete that from our neurology and stop whatever it is that they're going to say coming in and housing our grey matter? It's really simple. I developed something called the delete button. So what you do is you literally imagine you've got this big red button inside your imagination. And as the person's talking to you, if you don't agree with what it is they're saying and you don't want to get into a long discussion about it or defend your point of view, there's no need, but you don't want to agree with them, you can just smile nicely and in your neurology, imagine going delete, delete, delete. It's almost like you're catching yourself saying, I am not accepting this to come into my neurology. An example I can give you is, I am a marathon runner. I love running marathons. I'm now 53 and I do have a few friends that always tell me, you shouldn't be running, Amanda, at your age. They've been probably saying this for 10 years. You know, your knees are going to get really bad. You shouldn't be doing this. Your hips are going to get bad. I know they're doing it out of care. I know their intention is good. However, I don't want my neurology to buy and accept that my knees could become bad. I don't want to accept that. So I just hit my delete button. Now you can have whatever you like on your delete button. You can have shut up on it. You could even have this if you wanted, or it might just say delete. But the delete button is really useful in a place where you don't want to accept what the person's saying. And equally, you don't want to give what they're saying any energy or any weight or enter into a lengthy discussion. So that's the delete button, which is just a really easy way of processing what you allow in and what you reject. So the third topic I'd like to talk about is what is empowerment. And again, this is all about our neurology. It's all about self-empowerment. Personal development is something that's a little bit of a facade. I know lots of people that have read lots of personal development books and they still haven't quite found what it is that they want out of that book. And this is because personal empowerment comes from within. And honestly, I could talk about this subject for 7 days. I could talk about it forever. I've just picked out something that I know will resound with you and you'll be able to start implementing immediately. You see, the problem is when curveballs hit, is that our neurology is designed to answer questions. And we ask ourselves questions a lot. The quality of the question very much determines the quality of the answer. And particularly at this time when a curveball hits, we can tend to ask ourselves this question: why has this happened to me? Why did I decide to invest in this new business? Why did I decide to start this new job? Whatever it is for you that's your curveball, know that the quality of the question will determine the quality of the result or answer that you get from your neurology. So I'm going to introduce you to this last concept of asking empowering questions. Your brain is designed to answer the question. The better the question, the better the answer. You have an infinite capability inside your neurology. Whilst you've been sat listening to me for over, it'll be half an hour, Your neural networks have just developed another 50,000 neural networks in that half an hour. I mean, how crazy is that? And you just sat there watching me. There's so much going on. There's so much going on in your neurology. Let me introduce you to some really powerful, empowering questions. How can I learn even more from this situation? This is very powerful because what it suggests is that you're already learning. It's a presupposition in terms of linguistics. How can I learn even more from this situation is a really useful question to ask. It takes you from the why and blame, and it puts you into a more resourceful place to start moving forward. The second question is, what can I do right now that'll take me closer to where I want to be? I think there's a great sense of overwhelm with what's going on. There's a lot of things that are unknown at the moment. You know, for example, Sarah and I are in New Zealand. We're supposed to be back in Europe. We've had to postpone a lot of courses. We don't quite know what that's going to look like in 6 months' time. But by asking this question, it allows us to go, what can I put my energy into right now that's going to take me closer to where I want to be? And then this one is my personal favorite. When this is all over, what will I wish I'd done more time, spent more time doing? It's gold, because sometimes I think we can lose ourselves in things that probably aren't going to matter. So when this is all over, what am I going to spend more time doing? Those are three really empowering questions. Now, the other thing I'm going to invite you to do, we've all been on social media far more than perhaps normal. I'm going to invite you to get your phone or whatever device you use and look at the last 6 people you connected with and ask yourself this question. Are these people that throw logs of passion on my bonfire of life? Or are these people that get the hosepipe out and try and put the fire out? Now, it's not to say that you're going to disconnect with them if there's 1 or 2 in there that get the hosepipe holders, as opposed to the logs of passions of life holders. You don't need to necessarily just delete them from your device, but you might want to use your delete button with them. And you might want to ask some really empowering questions when you've had an exchange with them. Now, somebody that I know used the delete button a lot, and somebody that asked really empowering questions was this lady. Because when we were all there at the fragrance launch, we got the whole of Fleet Street there, the buyers from the United Kingdom, all there in readiness waiting to meet Elizabeth. And we were still unsure as to whether she'd actually walk through the door. We were so unsure, we'd even flown Leonard Lauder, Estee Lauder's son, over on Concorde to be the guest star in case Elizabeth didn't make it. We also gave her our full support if she didn't feel capable of coming into that space. Lo and behold, the doors opened and in walked Elizabeth Hurley in a mint green Versace suit. The guy I was stood next to, Ross Donald from Scotland, dropped his champagne glass. He was so shocked she was there. The champagne, the little stem broke off and the champagne glass rolled over and clicked against Elizabeth's Prada heel. She swooped down very gracefully, picked it up, which it was now empty, walked over to him, gave him a little kiss on his cheek and said, "I think this belongs to you." It was incredible. She then stood on the stage after being introduced by Leonard Lauder. And there was this enormous white elephant in the room because everyone was wondering, what's she really thinking? How's she really feeling? And what she said was this: "This is my second glass of champagne and I've had 3 pain au chocolat because I too deserve to indulge myself." There was an absolute rapturous applause. And from then on in, Elizabeth Hurley literally drew a line in the sand. She's still an ambassador for the Estee Lauder Corporation today, and I'm sure we can all agree she's had a fantastic career. It's down to mindset. It's down to seeing things the way you want to see them, being able to use that delete button and choosing what you allow into your neurology, and also asking empowering questions. So I would like to share with you some free online resources that Sarah, myself, and our 18 coaches globally have been working on for people to support them during this time. we've only had half an hour here, guys, so there's a lot more that we can offer than I've had chance to speak about. Let me take you through some of these tools. Email me at the end or connect with us via the website. You can have all of them. They're all there, they're all online, they're all available. One of them is something that we developed called a habit installer. It looks very simple. The reason it's simple is because it is simple. It's very easy to use. And this won an award out of 1,600 coaches' applications on how to install habits in adults for life. There's a lot more than goes with it than just that. There's also a chapter of my book that supports that. If that's something you want to do over the next 31 days, install some really powerful new habits, then certainly make sure you connect with me. I'll have that connection for you at the end. We also have this online course. If you're finding yourself panicking or worrying or feeling anxious about the future, then this half an hour online course will teach you exactly what's happening in the neurology when anxiety happens, and more importantly, how to outthink it. So if this is again something that you think will be helpful to you, just connect. And then we also have a beautiful 15-minute hypnosis. I've got a doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy. It's recorded in a professional studio. We normally sell it on iTunes, and it's something we can just gift to you. If you feel that your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of you that kind of runs you, needs to unplug and just relax every day for 15 minutes, then this might be just the thing for you. This is how to get hold of me, Amanda@yourlifeliveit.com, or just look at our website, yourlifeliveit.com. And I'd just like to leave you with this thought. We have this on our wall here in New Zealand. In fact, you can see it behind me. And it says, you are so much more than you think you are. And you are. Your neurology is infinitely capable of achieving whatever it is that you instruct it to achieve. You just need to create the right movie. Thanks so much. We'll open up for questions now. And just stop my screen share. Thank you. There we go. I'm sorry, Mark, I can't hear you. I don't know if it's me, but I can't hear you.
Myself, aren't I? I was saying that it was a different take that you've given us. And we're very grateful to that. And as you can see, those who are on Zoom, there's been a lot of positive comments, a lot of saying thank you, different take. Amanda, before we have to go, could you give us, you mentioned very clearly, look, press the delete button. Can you give us more examples of how you've done that in your experience, in your life?
Yeah, I think definitely there's two examples I can give you in particular, Mark. The first one was when I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and people want to really help, and they come to you with, reading resources, websites, somebody else that's had the same disease. And I just chose to only focus on anything that was positive. So I used the delete button a lot when people were telling me stories that didn't really resound with me, didn't really connect with me. The second time I used it in a really powerful way was I had been married for 20 years to Keith, my late husband, who sadly died a year after I had my kidney taken out of the same disease. And of course, that was a very heartbreaking time. However, Keith advised me to move on and find happiness again. And you can imagine my family and friends, people close to me, their sort of bewilderment when I fell in love with a woman. It's a bit like, how does that happen? Because you're not gay, you've been married for 20 years. And my response to that was, no, I'm not gay, I'm Amanda, and I just happen to have fallen in love with another soul that happens to be female. So the delete button was pressed so many times for that, because people would say, you're not gay, you're grieving, you're going through a phase, this is not the right thing for you, because people felt they knew me better than I knew myself. And what it says behind me on the wall, you are so much more than you think you are, is really testament to the fact that actually the person that knows what's best for them is you, as in I knew. The person, everyone listening to me, you know what's best for you. Nobody else does. And it's just connecting with that and being strong enough to press that delete button. Because if I'd have listened to a lot of people, it could have allowed my my life to be very different. And yet here we are, you know, married, 5 years, 2 beautiful baby boys.
And it sounds though quite brutal, if you like, in terms of, you know, what do you do? Look, we can lose touch with people. We naturally do that, don't we? For people who are negative, who we don't think is right for our lives, but who are negative, might be better that we distance. And most of us don't do that, do we? Can you elaborate on that? Share with that a bit. It sounds a bit brutal.
Yeah, so you're clearly not doing the delete button outside. You're not kind of going delete, 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 stop what you're saying. It's all inside your neurology. So I have a choice. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example of this. I have a choice. There was a lady that came to visit me in the hospital when I just recovered from kidney cancer. And I didn't know her very well, you know, she was an acquaintance, and she bought me a nice bottle of Pinot Noir and a nice bar of chocolate, which was very kind of her. But she sort of then started to tell me that she'd watched this documentary about a woman that had donated her kidney to somebody that needed it. And I was listening, intrigued. I thought, this is a very interesting story. And, you know, she's sharing this with me. And then she said, but the thing is, Amanda, you need to be really careful, because what the research showed with this woman was that when you give a kidney away or you lose an organ, you can slump into a very deep depression. So I had an option here. I could either do nothing and listen and kind of go, oh my God, oh really, depression. In which case my neurology could kind of go, oh, you better be careful. You don't want to slump into depression, which means it's already got in. Or I could say, actually, I don't really want to talk about this. It's not relevant to me, which is quite rude. Or I could just kind of go, thank you so much for sharing. That must have been a really interesting documentary. But inside I'm going, delete, 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 stop. I don't want that coming into my neurology. So in many respects, the delete button allows us to consciously say, no, I'm not having that absorb into my grey cells. I don't need to reason with this person. I don't need to enter into discussion. You know, I could, the fourth one is to say, oh, that's really interesting. I don't necessarily agree with that. This is what I agree with. But to be honest, Mark, I didn't have the energy. I was so tired. So it's kind of if it's a fleeting comment or it's somebody you're not going to connect with again, it's really not worth expending your energy on. The delete button is gold. Does that answer the question?
It does. And how would you give examples of that in a more business setting? You've done it very much from, you know, in ourselves and our lives. And you gave that great example about Liz Hurley, of course. Any other more of a business examples that you would?
Yes, yeah, sure. And look, in a business dynamic, there may be more of an opportunity to discuss and flush out what really is important, because, you know, when we're using our delete button, generally it's a values driven response, and therefore if there's a misalignment in a business arrangement or a relationship where the values are out of alignment, and what that means is that, you know, that they're coming from, the two parties are coming from two different belief systems, then values can get very muddy. It's a little bit, you know, at the moment, people have different opinions on Jacinda, our Prime Minister. Different people have different opinions on Boris. And so do we want to waste energy discussing things that are never necessarily going to remove people's values? Whereas we can just hit the delete button when they're talking about things that not in alignment with our value system. However, let's spend our energy on how we can actualize what action points we need to take. It's not about who's right or wrong, it's about creating action. So it's where there's a colleague perhaps that you're not agreeing that it's coming from the right place. You've tried, there's no movement on that, but you still have to get the job done. In order to remove the emotional connection and be able to work with that person well, it's useful to use the delete button.
Very good point, thank you. Amanda, I think that's all we've got time for. It's gone so quickly.
It has.
It has. Thank you, Dr. Amanda Foo-Ryland, author of This Is It, It's Your Life Living. And Amanda, would you just share one more time your email address?
Yes, it's amanda@yourlifeliveit.com. Also, check out the website. There's lots of fabulous videos, resources in there as well, and it explains a lot more about neurolinguistic programming, which is not the easiest, most marketable term. So there's a lot more layman terms as to what that actually means on the website.
Well, Amanda, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our next panel is in literally 25 minutes, 11:30 UK British Summer Time. Thank you again. All the best to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.